My parents loved reminding me of one thing. Grace, you're a dropout. Look at your sister. They said it so often it became the soundtrack of my life. While Olivia floated through the world in designer gowns and glowing praise, I was the family's disappointment, the girl with a phase, a tiny apartment, and a job they refused to take seriously. They never asked what I was actually doing every night, from midnight to sunrise, why my eyes were always tired, or why my hands shook from coding until they cramped. To them, I was the failure, the embarrassment, the daughter they tried to hide behind their perfect golden child. What they never imagined was that behind their backs, silently, obsessively, I was building something far bigger than any of them ever dreamed. And one day, they would discover the truth. I wasn't just the dropout. I was the woman who secretly built a $97 million tech firm. For as long as I can remember, my family measured worth the same way they measured success. Degrees, salaries, promotions, and the approval of wealthy people. Unfortunately for them, and apparently for me, I didn't fit anywhere in that equation. My name is Grace Mitchell, and in my family's eyes, I have always been the wrong daughter. Growing up, I watched my parents beam with pride every time my older sister, Olivia, did something remotely impressive. She won academic awards? They framed them. She interned at a major corporation? They threw a dinner party. She breathed. They applauded. Meanwhile, when it came to me, the energy somehow shifted. Dad would introduce Olivia as my daughter, the rising star at Ridgewell Pharmaceuticals, and there's the pretense of his hab. Then he would gesture vaguely at me. And this is Grace. She's figuring things out. Figuring things out? I was 26, not 12. Olivia was perfect on paper. MBA from Duke, Director of Operations at 28, $230K salary, engaged to Matthew Grant, whose family owned a chain of private hospitals across Texas. The Grants were old money, charity galas, golf courses, high society. My parents adored them. Then there was me, the dropout, the embarrassment, the girl they whispered about in church hallways. They didn't know I dropped out of college because I had discovered something worth building, something urgent, something consuming. To them, the story was simpler and more convenient. Grace couldn't keep up. Grace quit. Grace failed. And they repeated it so often, I sometimes wondered if they enjoyed the narrative. My apartment in downtown Austin was 42 square meters. Small, cozy, lit by a single window that rattled whenever it rained. I loved it. Mom, on the other hand, called it, that little phase you're going through. Phase? I had lived there 3 years. Once, when I visited home, I noticed the framed photos lining the living room wall. Olivia, graduating. Olivia posing in her $49,000 gown. Olivia standing with the Grants on their yacht. I searched instinctively for a picture of myself. There wasn't one. Later that night, I found 2 dusty frames shoved inside a drawer in the guest bedroom turned face down, as if even looking at me was too much effort. It hurt, more than I wanted to admit, but nothing stung more than the day Mom sighed and said, "Sweetheart, we just don't want to have to make excuses for you." See in presentations twos of the crease in perseverance, excuses. For me, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I went home, closed my apartment door, opened my laptop, and kept building the thing they believed I wasn't capable of. They had no idea who I really was. And soon, they would. Olivia's wedding planning became a full-time production, one my parents treated like the royal event of the century. Every week, there was a new update. The venue will be the Rosewood Mansion, $350,000, but worth every penny. Matthew's parents are contributing $200,000. Isn't that generous? Look at Olivia's gown, $49,000, hand-stitched lace. They said all of this in front of me, as if forgetting I existed or remembering, but choosing not to care. Despite everything, Olivia originally asked me to be her bridesmaid. I said yes, because I still loved her, even if she didn't always love me back. But 3 months before the wedding, she adjusted my role. I was demoted from bridesmaid to guest. "It's just logistics, Grace," she insisted, not meeting my eyes. "The lineup needs to match the aesthetic." Aesthetic? Apparently, I didn't fit her color palette. I swallowed the humiliation and stayed quiet. Until the night everything changed. I was at home, surrounded by cold takeout containers and spreadsheets for my company, when my phone buzzed. Olivia. Grace. Matthew's parents have been asking about you. They're very conscious of image. Maybe it's better if you don't come to the wedding. I stared at the screen, waiting for the punchline. None came. Something inside me twisted painfully. My throat dried. I reread the message 5 times. Did my own sister just uninvite me? From her wedding? I called her immediately. Olivia, what is this? You don't want me there? She exhaled sharply, as if I was the difficult one. Grace, please don't be dramatic. It's just this wedding is very high profile. Matthew's family wants everything to look polished. That, meaning what? I whispered. Silence. The kind that tells you the truth before the words do. Then she delivered the blow. You work customer service. You live in a tiny downtown apartment. You don't fit the picture, Grace. Fit the picture. Not fit the family. Not fit my life. Just the picture. A curated image she desperately wanted to protect. My chest tightened. My vision blurred. But my voice? My voice steadied. So I embarrass you. She didn't deny it. That was everything I needed to know. I ended the call. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just done. I sat alone in my small apartment, staring at the cracked paint on the wall, feeling the last bit of hope I had for my family sink to the floor. But in that silence, in that heartbreak, something inside me hardened. If they didn't want me in their perfect picture, fine. I would build a life so big, so undeniable, that they would never again be able to crop me out. People think dropping out of college is a sign of failure. In my case, it was the smartest decision I ever made, though no one knew it at the time. Not Mom. Not Dad. Not Olivia. Not a single person in my family. They believed I quit because I couldn't handle the pressure. The truth was far different. I had discovered a problem that no one was solving. One that every small business owner complained about when I worked part-time at a local cafe during my sophomore year. CRM software was either too expensive, too complicated, or downright useless for small businesses. Enterprise-level tools cost $40,000 to $200,000 a year. Cheaper versions lagged, crashed, or lacked essential features. I kept hearing the same frustrations. Why isn't there anything simple? Why do we have to pay for features we don't even use? That question wouldn't leave my mind. So, every night after class, I went home, sat on my cheap mattress, and taught myself to code JavaScript, Python, SQL, everything I could get my hands on. I watched tutorials until my vision blurred, typed until my fingers cramped, and built prototype after prototype until the sun rose. My roommates thought I was gaming. My parents thought I was wasting my life, but I was building the skeleton of something huge. At 19, I created the first rough version of Flowpilot, a light, intuitive, fully customizable CRM tailored specifically for small businesses. It was ugly, clunky, barely functional, but it worked. By 20, I made the decision that shocked everyone. I withdrew from college. Dad shouted for the first time in years. Mom cried. Olivia rolled her eyes and muttered, "Well, at least now it makes sense." But I wasn't discouraged. For the first time in my life, I felt free. I worked customer service during the day and coded all night. I skipped parties, brunches, holidays. Every spare moment went into refining Flowpilot. 6 months after launch, I had 40 paying customers. A year later, 500. The next year, 3,000. My apartment was tiny, but the numbers were not. $7,800. Month $110,000. Month $420,000. Month, then $2.1 million per month. Then a company valuation of $97 million before Series C. I hired employees, developers, support staff, a CFO who previously spent 12 years at Oracle. But while my company grew, my family never once asked what I actually did. They didn't want to know. They preferred the narrative where I was the failure and Olivia was the shining star. So I let them believe it. I told them I worked in customer service. Technically not a lie, because serving customers was still part of my role. But mostly, I wanted to know something. Would they love me if I had nothing impressive to offer? Would they support me if I were truly struggling? Would they choose me if I weren't successful? And painfully, quietly, inevitably, I learned the answer. They wouldn't. That truth didn't break me. It fueled me. Every night alone with my laptop, While my family bragged about Olivia's latest promotion or charity gala, I whispered to myself, build it anyway. And I did. One line of code at a time. One sleepless night at a time. One ignored family dinner at a time. By the time Olivia uninvited me from her wedding, I was no longer the girl they dismissed. I was the silent architect of a $97 million empire. And none of them had a clue. The day Olivia walked down the aisle in her $49,000 gown, I walked into the Four Seasons Austin wearing a midnight blue dress I had saved up for months to buy. Her wedding was scheduled for 6 p.m. My award ceremony? 6 p.m. sharp. 2 events. 2 sisters. 2 very different worlds. I curled my hair myself, hands trembling, not from nerves but from years of holding everything in. Tonight wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about stepping into the version of myself I had fought so brutally to become. My escort for the night was Noah Brooks, a tech founder whose company recently hit a $1.2 valuation. We met at a founders meetup 2 years earlier and stayed close ever since, one of the only people who treated me with respect before I was somebody. When he saw me walking toward him in the hotel lobby, he let out a soft whistle. Grace, you look like someone who's about to change her life. I smiled. I think I already did. The ballroom shimmered with gold chandeliers, designer suits, and the soft hum of conversations between CEOs, venture capitalists, and government officials. A world my parents never imagined I'd belong to. A world they didn't even know I helped build. When the ceremony began, the governor took the stage, framed by 2 massive screens displaying the names of the nominees. My heart thumped loudly, but my expression stayed steady. They announced 5th place, then 4th, then 3rd. Noah squeezed my hand. Then the governor said, and now, Texas Innovator Under 30 Award goes to Grace Mitchell, founder and CEO of Flowpilot. My breath caught. For a moment, I couldn't move. Then applause erupted, loud, enthusiastic, overwhelming. I stood. The lights warmed my skin. The cameras flashed. I felt something rise inside me, a strength I had buried for years under my family's disappointment. I walked up the steps. My name filled the screen behind me. Flowpilot numbers flashed. 10,000, 200 clients, $2, 1M monthly revenue, 97M valuation. The governor handed me the award. Grace, tell us what drove you to build Flowpilot. I inhaled deeply. Then I told the truth. Small businesses had no affordable tools, so I taught myself to code. People thought I was throwing away my future, but I was actually building it. Cheers, whistles, applause that echoed off the walls. I continued. Sometimes the world underestimates you. Sometimes even your family does. But your value doesn't come from their expectations. It comes from what you choose to create. The room went silent, then erupted again. As I stepped off the stage, Noah leaned in and whispered, somewhere in Dallas, someone just said, look at your sister, but not the way your parents meant it. For the first time in years, I felt something gentle in my chest. Pride. Real, undeniable pride. And the night was only just beginning. The moment I stepped off the stage, reporters flooded in like a tide. Cameras, microphones, questions shouted over each other. I wasn't used to attention. For years, I'd been invisible in my own family. Now I was the center of a ballroom packed with Texas's most influential people. Noah shielded me with one arm. Easy, one question at a time. I tried not to laugh from the sheer absurdity of it all. Just hours ago, Mom was probably fussing over Olivia's train at the altar, whispering proudly to guests about her perfect daughter. Meanwhile, I was being interviewed by Forbes, the Austin Business Journal, and TechWire. When the first article hit, I didn't even notice. Forbes posted, Texas Dropout builds $97M tech firm meet Grace Mitchell. My photo with the governor, him handing me the award, both of us smiling, was splashed across every platform within minutes. Notifications exploded. Ding, 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 ding. I turned my phone to silent, but it still buzzed nonstop in my clutch like an angry hornet. By the time I checked it around 9:30 p.m., I had 147 unread messages. The first was from Mom. Mom, Grace? Is this real? Why didn't you tell us? Call me immediately. Then, Dad, we're seeing your name everywhere. Why did you hide this from your family? And then, Olivia, my wedding guests are literally showing me your Forbes article. You couldn't wait one day? You ruined everything. I stared at that message for a long moment, long enough for the noise of the ballroom to fade into a soft hum. Ruined her night? She had uninvited me from the wedding. She had humiliated me. And now I was the problem? Noah watched my expression shift. Bad? I handed him my phone. He raised his eyebrows. Wow, they're panicking. I typed one reply to Olivia. Me? I didn't ruin anything. You chose to exclude me. That decision was yours, not mine. She saw it instantly. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then again, then disappeared once more. She didn't know how to respond. Mom called. Dad called. Olivia called twice. I let every call ring out. Noah nudged me gently. You don't owe them access to you tonight. Or ever, unless you choose it. He was right. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one begging for approval. They were. At 11:17 p.m., a final message came from Mom. Mom, Grace, please talk to us. We didn't know. We didn't understand. I turned off my phone. Not out of spite. Not out of anger. But because, for once, the noise of my family no longer defined me. Tonight, I defined myself. 2 days after the award ceremony, I arrived at the office expecting a quiet morning. Instead, my receptionist's voice crackled through the intercom, nervous, hesitant. Grace, your family is here. All of them. My stomach dropped. I closed my laptop, straightened my jacket, and walked toward the lobby, each step heavier than the last. And there they were. Mom, gripping her designer purse like it was a lifeline. Dad, stiff and pale. Olivia, still in wedding makeup, now smudged with exhaustion and something that looked like panic. The moment Mom saw me, she rushed forward. Grace, how could you hide a $97 million company from us? Her voice echoed through the lobby. Employees peeked around corners, wide-eyed. I held up a hand. Let's talk somewhere private. We walked into a small conference room. I shut the door. The silence inside vibrated with tension. Mom jumped in first. Why didn't you tell us? Why did we have to find out from Forbes? I stared at her, feeling that familiar burn in my chest. Mom, when did you ever ask what I actually did? Every time I tried to talk about work, you changed the subject. Dad stepped forward. We thought you were struggling, Grace. We didn't know. That's the problem. I cut in, voice shaking. You didn't want to know. Olivia crossed her arms, shaking her head. Grace, you embarrassed me. You humiliated me during my wedding. The Grants think I intentionally excluded a successful sister. I turned toward her slowly. You did intentionally exclude me. That's not fair, she snapped. Oh, it's very fair. My voice dropped lower, steadier. You told me I didn't fit your picture. That I would make things awkward. That you didn't want people to judge you because of me? Silence. The kind that strips people bare. Olivia blinked rapidly. I didn't want people talking. They already talked, I said. They whispered for years about your perfect life, your career, your fiancé, your expensive dress. And I didn't complain once. But the moment I didn't match your aesthetic, you cut me out of your wedding, Olivia. Her shoulders slumped. Mom swallowed hard. Grace, sweetheart, we didn't know how talented you were. I laughed, a hollow, painful sound. You think this is about talent? No, Mom. This is about respect. And I've never had any from you. Dad stepped forward, voice low. Grace, please, we're trying. Trying now, I replied. Because I'm suddenly worth something to you. Mom's face crumpled. That's not true. It is, I said quietly. If my company had failed, if I really was a dropout working minimum wage, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't even have noticed. Dad sighed, rubbing his forehead. We made mistakes, Grace. We prioritized Olivia's achievements. We thought she needed more support. It is never agers of the mole edited, the mold cast to the sect in my ad. And I didn't? My voice broke before I could stop it. I spent years building something alone, crying alone, failing alone. But none of you saw that because you never looked. Olivia stepped closer, tears streaking down her face. Grace, I'm sorry. For what? I shot back. For the wedding? For the years you acted like you were above me? For letting Mom and Dad compare us until I barely recognized myself? She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. I was wrong, she whispered. I was terrified of disappointing Matthew's family. I let that matter more than you. But I swear I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. Something inside me cracked, not forgiveness but understanding. Mom reached for my hand. Grace, please. Let us make this right. I stepped back. No, not yet. Maybe not ever. You don't get to show up because Forbes validated me. Respect isn't retroactive. Their faces fell. I inhaled sharply. I'm not shutting the door. But I'm not opening it wide just because you regret things now. If you want a relationship with me, you earn it. Slowly. With consistency. Not panic. Dad nodded, tears gathering in his eyes. We'll do whatever it takes. For the first time in my life, I believed he meant it. But this time, I wasn't the one begging. They were, and I finally felt powerful. That night, after my family left the office, I didn't go home. I sat alone on the rooftop of my building, the Austin skyline flickering like an endless row of blinking warnings. My phone vibrated with messages I didn't open. Apologies. Explanations. Please. None of them made the knot in my chest loosen. Noah eventually found me there. He sat beside me without asking, letting the wind speak for us. After a long while, he asked softly, Grace, do you want them back in your life? I stared at the city lights. Want? Of course I wanted them, the version of them I needed growing up. The parents who would have been proud even when I was small, struggling, uncertain. The sister who would have stood next to me, not above me. But reality wasn't that version. I don't know, I whispered. Noah nodded like he already understood. Then let them fight for you, for once. The next morning, something happened I didn't expect. Olivia showed up at my apartment building alone. No makeup, no perfect curls, no expensive dress. Just her, small and shaken, clutching an envelope. Can we talk? She asked quietly. I let her in. For a moment, she just stood there in my living room, staring at the white walls, the plants, the desk where Flowpilot was born. Then she burst into tears. Grace, I wrote you something. She handed me the envelope. Inside was an 8-page handwritten letter, messy, ink-smudged, tear-stained. The first line shattered me. I don't want forgiveness. I want truth between us. I sat down as she spoke. I spent my whole life trying to be perfect, she confessed. To be the daughter Mom and Dad could brag about. To be the woman the Grants wanted. And the more I tried, the more terrified I became of making the tiniest mistake. She swallowed hard. You were everything I wasn't allowed to be. Free, creative, brave. And instead of admiring you, I resented you. My breath caught. She continued. The wedding? She wiped her eyes. That wasn't about you. It was about me being terrified that I wasn't good enough for them. So I cut out the one person who would have reminded me of who I really am. I stared at her, stunned. And Grace. The worst part is, I convinced myself I was protecting you. When the truth is, I was protecting my pride. She broke again, shoulders shaking. I didn't touch her. I didn't speak. I let her shatter. Because for the first time in our lives, Olivia wasn't performing. She wasn't polished. She wasn't perfect. She was human. When she finally looked up, her voice trembled. You didn't ruin my wedding. You ruined the fantasy I was living in. And maybe that needed to happen. The words hit me harder than any insult she had ever thrown my way. I sat in silence for a long time before I finally asked, why now? Olivia exhaled shakily. Because when I saw you on that stage, confident, proud, powerful, I realized something awful. I had spent years trying to shine, while making sure you stayed dim. My chest tightened painfully. She stepped closer. Grace, I can't undo what I did. But I want to be your sister again. Even if it takes months, years, I'm willing to earn you back. There it was. The thing I never thought I'd hear. I didn't hug her. I didn't forgive her. But I reached out and took her hand gently. Olivia, this is the first time I've ever believed you meant what you said. She cried harder. We talked for hours about fear, envy, childhood, pressure, pain, about things we should have said years earlier. When she finally left, I felt something strange and unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not closure. But possibility. For the first time, not everything was broken beyond repair. Perhaps some things could slowly, carefully, painfully be rebuilt. On my terms. And hers. But mostly on mine. 3 months passed after Olivia came to my apartment with her letter. In that time, my life shifted in ways I never expected. Flowpilot closed a major partnership with a national retail association. Series C moved forward $30 million in funding. Our valuation climbed beyond $120 million. I bought a house in Travis Heights, a place filled with natural light and quiet corners where my mind could finally breathe. But the biggest changes weren't financial. They were relational. Dad was the first to reach out again, asking if we could meet. Not to interrogate me, not to demand explanations, but to listen. "I want to understand you, Grace," he said, sipping coffee across from me. "Not the daughter I thought you should be, the daughter you are." It wasn't perfect. He stumbled over his words, overcompensated sometimes, asked awkward questions about tech and startups. But he tried, really tried, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a disappointment sitting across from him. Mom was slower. She apologized tentatively, like the word was fragile in her mouth. Her guilt came out sideways, bringing me homemade food, sending too many texts, asking if I needed anything. One day she said softly, "Grace, I don't want to compare my daughters anymore. I just want to know you." It wasn't the apology I dreamed of as a kid, but it was a beginning. As for Olivia, we started meeting for coffee once a month. No fancy brunches, no curated perfection. Just two sisters learning how to talk without the weight of competition crushing us. She told me she had started therapy, ended the toxic cycle with the grants, quit her job to find out who she was without validation. "I spent so long trying to be enviable," she confessed. "I forgot how to be real." I didn't forgive her all at once. Healing isn't a switch, it's a slow, uneven climb. But I no longer felt a knife twist in my chest when I looked at her, and that was something. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through my new office, I placed my governor's award on my desk. I didn't put it there to brag, or to compare, or to prove anything anymore. I put it there as a reminder that I built my life myself, line by line, night by night, failure by failure, without applause or approval. A reminder that the girl my parents called a dropout had become a woman who refused to drop herself. I still don't know what my relationship with my family will look like in the future. Maybe it will strengthen. Maybe it will fracture again. But now, whichever direction it goes, I know this. My worth isn't negotiable. My success isn't accidental. And my story isn't built on anyone's permission but my own. For the first time, truly, I am living a life that cannot be cropped out of anyone's picture. A life that is mine.